Perfect. Thank you so much. So welcome everybody. My name is Elizabeth Probst. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator here at St. Jude for ending the HIV epidemic. And I appreciate everybody who has logged on to join us for an EndHIV901's technical assistance training. So I will briefly introduce our speaker. Before I do that, I'm going to make a small disclaimer. The small disclaimer is if you don't have the floor, please make sure to mute yourself as well as have your camera off to make sure that we're expediting the bandwidth and ensuring that Mar has the full capacity to do his presentation with no glitches and anything like that, because we know sometimes technology is great when it doesn't want to be great. So without further ado, I will introduce our speakers. So our speaker today is Mar Newell, pronouns they, them, he, is an athletic academic advisor at University of Memphis while also serving as a board member for Mid-South Trans Nation and Mid-South Pride. And they work within the community to provide a safe space to gain access to life-affirming resources, educational panels, and assisting with fundraisers for many nonprofits within the Mid-South area. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Mar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you all for joining me today. I'll just warn y'all, I make jokes at times. I just do it to lighten the mood and keep things moving along, and they will probably be awkward or stupid, so you're welcome. So as Elizabeth said, my name is Mar Newell. All those things that I do, they're my passion, including my own profession. I have a master's from Arkansas State in College Student Personnel Services, so I'm also one of the lucky ones that actually gets to use their college degree for what it's meant for. I have track and field and men's soccer, and I support my kids at every turn. They do know I am who I am, that I'm a they, them, and I do he, him also. And I have gotten nothing but support from them. They're excellent people to work with, especially including my boss. So I'd like to give Mr. Ferdinand West props and thank you for supporting me through this, and the University of Memphis also. So today I'm going to talk about TransMasc folks and HIV/AIDS stigma. Now, of course, presentation doesn't want to go forward because it's my life.
I'm not sure if this is happening for everybody, but Mar, your audio is in and out.
I am so sorry. I don't know how to fix that, but we'll see.
Yeah, when you come, I think it's when you come closer to the screen, it gets a lot more clear.
All right, well, then I guess y'all get my face pretty big when I'm not sharing the screen. So TransMasc. I know some people are probably thinking, well, isn't that trans man? No, it is a little different. So a TransMasc is just what it says up there. We just identify with masculinity. We don't really identify with being a man. Within the non-binary area, there are TransMasc, there are TransFemme, there are people who identify with everything. You know, they're he, she, they, them, Z, Zer, Z. So ZIR, Zer, XE. I even know some people that identify as what and it. And it's just, they're younger people who may not understand some of the stigmas that, I went through as a kid and many other people older went through. But they use those terms basically to take back the power of the word. Because I had to ask. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask. And I did. And that's what they said. Taking back the power of those words, those slurs that have been used against the community. So the young people are really doing a lot to help. So this is a trans man. His name is Jamie. He's in England, pardon me, and I really enjoy his content. When you're first coming out, you don't know where to go for information, but the internet's there. And especially for young people, that internet is very valuable. They use it for everything. This is one person that I started following when I started my journey, which coming from a small town in north central Arkansas, when growing up, it was very much, and it was within the church, of course, and it was very much don't be one of those gay people because it was during the 80s when HIV and AIDS was really starting to become more on the news. Those are things that I started to see, and the church really scared me into you don't want to be gay because you'll get AIDS and die. And it was a stigma that society around me had placed upon other people. But then one day I saw Princess Diana. And, you know, of course, we all followed Princess Diana once they got married. I don't care who you were, you saw her and you thought she was beautiful and caring and loving. And one thing that really always stood out to me was something I heard her say was HIV does not make people dangerous to know. You can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, and their playgrounds and toys. Her actions and words moved me. You can talk all day long, in my opinion, but when you actually put the actions to the quote, that's the people I follow. So fast forward many, many years, trying to figure myself out. I was, after high school, went in the Army, met a guy, got married, started kids, but I still always knew there was something not 100%, I won't say right, but 100% not accurate in my life. There was something always missing. I wanted to be this other person. Well, after 30 years, I finally figured it out and was like, I'm a lesbian. There's no doubt about it. My now ex-husband, after the initial shock, which totally understandable, we moved together forward for our kids. Our kids were our number one. They still are our number one. And my oldest is now 23 and is also non-binary. So they're actually the one that helped me to figure out what non-binary is. But that's also many years down the road because I was like, I'm a lesbian. It's great. And chugging along in life. And then my oldest tells me I'm non-binary. I said, cool, what's that? As long as you're happy, I'm good with it. What is that? And they started explaining it, and I started doing my research and finding out things. And I get that. I get that. I don't always feel, I never always felt female, never always felt male. I'm just me. And that's a very easy definition of non-binaryism for some people. It's just, I'm just me. And they helped me to come forward as much as I tried to help them to come forward and be their most authentic self. And for all trans people, that's all we do. We're just trying to be our most authentic self. So I'm going to play a little bit of this video, and I feel like Jamie's description of what being trans is very, I hope this works. If not, I do believe it's in my resources. If not, I will make sure they are. This video is in there, and they just help explain it better. He's also very funny, and I apologize if you hear anything about hair or other places. I will do my best to get to that part because the clip thing unfortunately didn't work. There you go, right there. There.
I don't know if everybody's having trouble with this, but the volume's not coming through
Okay.
for the YouTube video.
Well, you know, technical difficulties, it happens. Was that my, yes. So I'll just go forward. Like I said, that'll be in the resources. Please go and listen to some of his things because he also does talk about surgeries that he's had and some of the stigmas that come from it and some of the other things that a trans man or transmasc person faces and deals in everyday life. And he is also married with children. So, you know, it's a firsthand experience that you can go and listen to. And if you want to build that kind of knowledge, it's a great place. So, as you see here, this is a good little bubble thing of identities that people feel per their gender within the non-binary area into just regular old cis male female ways. It's it can develop and change. People definitely feel sometimes more gender fluid of I may look like a guy, but I'm going to dress like a girl, and that's fine. I know plenty of those people have big, beautiful beards, all grown out, and they put little things in it, glitter, whatever. But they dress with with skirts and more female attire, as you would look at it, and that is perfectly fine. They are more down here, I would say, gender fluid, or agender. There are many, many terms within this, um, but like I said, non-binary, they're not really exclusively male or female. We don't think in that sense. We think like what you see. I think with a little bit more masculine kind of gender to the way I dress and I present. I've been on testosterone over 2 years now, and it has made me extremely happy because finally the person that I always saw up here in the head on the inside is on the outside. And I am planning surgeries, but unfortunately, which I'll talk about later, my insurance does not cover them because the state of Tennessee is not always too particularly fond of people wanting to have more gender affirming care. And that is totally fine. That's just part of the politics we are today, but it does not mean it's right, in my opinion. And I try to fight every day to help anyone get the life affirming care that they need. The biggest thing I will say in this is to be very careful. We all have biases. And I think of them all the time. I know I have biases towards certain things. Some people that I know are very feminine in their presentation, but they are non-binary. I still catch myself misgendering them. And my best advice to anyone in that situation is acknowledge, apologize, move on, do better. That's really sometimes the best way to move forward in that sense. If you sit there and just keep stumbling over yourself, it makes it very awkward, and then it hurts feelings. So acknowledge, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. You are they. I will do better. Move on. It's honestly that simple. So another thing that comes with being non-binary or even trans is we have chosen names. And you think about it, you get a name from your parents and you grow up with it. And even sometimes those names are, from a William to a Bill, Richard to a Dick or a Rich or whatever they want to say. I am comfortable with my dead name as it is, the name that I was born with, that I was given by my family. But I have legally changed my name. I went through the process. So when people say, "Oh, that's a unique name, Mar," that's great. I said, "Thank you, paid for." Because I did. I paid for it. I went to court. I did everything I was supposed to do. And to me, it is just who I am, Mar. My dead name is Mary. Didn't really fit, doesn't really fit now, especially. But Mar just felt natural, felt very easy. And I do love my family, even though I have no contact with them. They aren't too particularly fond of who I've become, and that is just fine. I respect everyone's opinion, even if I don't believe it's correct. But I'm going to go to James Baldwin because I love James Baldwin. I do believe this is him. It's like and it's not for verbatim, but it's like when your opinion is part of my oppression, we're going to have a problem. And I have issues and they have it with me. So we have all moved on in our directions, and they it is what it is at this point. But that's part of my experience, and that's part of many people's experiences in our community. That's why we have chosen family. I have a big chosen family here in Memphis, people that I trust with my life, people that help me in my everyday everything. From my partners to my kids, my ex-husband is actually part of my family, my chosen family. We came to terms with things and we move on. His fiance, she's a wonderful woman. She is part of my family. There are so many people in this community that I definitely call family. Some I call my little cousins. And when I say that, especially when when they are a person of color, people look at us real weird. But it's family. It's who we are. And I don't try to. I, I would love to have my family, but it's just not part of it. And that's the way we are. And we try to definitely watch how we erase our binary feelings, the binaryism that is erasing or ignoring or expressing that hate towards those people just because they identify differently. We call it out even amongst ourselves. So this is my personal favorite, the gender unicorn. I know there are the gingerbread men. There's one or two other ones that I have seen out there. And it's just a good way to remind everybody that your gender identity and your expression is different than your sex, different than who you're going to be attracted to physically or emotionally or even mentally. Everything develops differently. And from here, though, you can think, okay, how do I give good gender affirming care? Because giving gender affirming care is honestly life affirming care for my community. And that's, it encompasses the social, psychological, behavioral, and medical interventions. And these are just designed to support and affirm our gender identity. Excuse me. These interventions are not interventions. So sorry. They help us, the gender community, the transgender community, align with what our lives are, how we live every day. And this can identify and run from anywhere. But a lot of this gender affirming care that I'll talk about, a lot of the life saving care, the gender affirming and life saving care that I'll talk about today, it's the same thing to us that it would be to anyone else, a cis person that goes and gets a haircut. Well, it's the same for us. I used to have very long hair, but that first short haircut, no feeling like it. Me taking care of my beard. I know some of the men in the audience are probably like, it's facial hair, it's beard. For me, every time that I find something out new I can do with it or find some new product that works real well, I get excited because this is all new to me. This is a thrill. It's a rush when I use that brush on it and get it laying just right and I look just right. It's so fulfilling to know that I'm seeing who I want to see in the mirror every day. Surgeries, like I said, surgeries are expensive. And it's not only expensive, it's also sometimes hard to get. We have to also get a letter saying that we are mentally capable of having this surgery, that yes, they are who they say they are. Yes, they're transgender. Yes, they're trans masculine. Yes, they're trans feminine. We have to go and get a whole letter. And it's not like an insurance letter, it's an actual letter from a psychologist, from someone who does mental health, a counselor, that's saying we are mentally able to do this and that we are who we are. you don't see that in many other surgeries. A person goes and gets any kind of plastic surgery, because technically that's what the medical profession lists a lot of these surgeries as, is it's a plastic surgeon that does these things. I don't see anybody else who's going to get, breast augmentation having to go and get in a letter. We have to. So we have to always see, it always feels like we have to go through extra steps to get the care we need. And that would even be with getting medicine for HIV and AIDS, getting PrEP, getting PEP, doing those things. We have to take extra steps to do it. And it is not only medical steps. There are many other steps, which I'm going to talk about. But our access to free and timely healthcare that, respects everything about us, from our determination to the medical necessities that we need, it is really life affirming care. So as you see, I grabbed this from the Williams Institute out of UCLA School of Law. This is the population of transgender people, including non-binary, here in the US. It broke it down by section. It is 1.6 million altogether here with these numbers, and that's 13 years old and older. As you see, the South, we have the biggest population, which is sometimes very surprising to people because of the laws that in this little section of the country, they are sometimes the harshest ones. I mean, just here in Tennessee, the bathroom bill, which I did go to Nashville to talk to my representatives about, and made sure the ones on the judicial area, they saw us out there. And I loved being in that elevator with all those Republicans and me sitting there with my little trans flag hanging out of my suit pocket. I went dressed to impress, and I definitely, they felt uncomfortable being with me. You can, you sort of feel that. You could tell they were uncomfortable being in there with me. I was comfortable. I was fine. I was in an elevator going down to where everyone else was. But you could tell that they were uncomfortable. And when one of them did try to address me, and he said, "Sir," and he looked, and he just kept doing this and coming closer. And it's like, "Yes, sir works. Thank you. Hope you have a great day." It's a mechanism that many trans people now use. Is, I'm not uncomfortable being myself. If you're uncomfortable, that's on you. And that's how a lot of us have to do it now, is we push that. If you're uncomfortable, that's you. This isn't. I'm not. But that's an everyday experience for us. Tennessee actually has a population of 27,700 transgender people, self-identifying transgender people now. This is a big distinction, because some of these, I feel like sometimes these numbers could be higher, but people don't want to identify, and they sort of kind of stay in the closet, and it's for their own security. And I get it, and they're totally fine doing that. Never want to out someone in any way. I just always like to make sure they know we're here when you need us. But that number is 0.52% of the population. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, 27,000, that's a city. I mean, that's not a small population. We could make a whole county here in Tennessee of transgender people, really. And since we are in the Mid-South, I wanted to include Arkansas and Mississippi in these numbers, just because, and especially being here in Memphis, I know y'all see people from all three of these states, so I wanted to open it up. I did put Missouri in there, I probably should have, but I know that there's like Washington University up there in St. Louis, and I know there's places over in Kansas City and in Springfield that do a lot of these things too. So Arkansas has a population of 16,200. That is honestly the population of my hometown. So that is 0.70% of their population. And Mississippi, 9,600. I really feel like that number is higher, but it's Mississippi. We understand the history of the South, Jim Crow laws and things like that. So I say take some of these numbers as as they are, but understand there's probably more. So I wanted to also break it down as far as within the race and everything of everyone. As you see, Tennessee, it's the AIAN, just for anyone who may not know, that would be the First Nations, Native Americans, and within that realm of our population. So they would probably be more of the two-spirit people within that. There's a whole nother term, but they are definitely within that population. But all other races is definitely the highest. But what actually surprised me in this, but didn't really surprise me, is the Latinx population, considering that is one of the biggest populations growing here in Memphis. It shouldn't have surprised me, but it did, unfortunately. I I should not be surprised on things. I should do better in myself in that. Call out my own biases. But as you see, I mean, it's all over the place. It's everybody. There is just, I feel like just like with HIV, it doesn't discriminate. It If it infects you, it infects you. If you are who you are, you are. You know, diseases don't do that, and the way someone identifies is the same. So I've talked about gender a lot. Um, Considering I do understand, you know, how HIV is spread, the few ways that they are, and one of them is definitely sex. And as we now know, gender and sex are different. These are some of the sexual orientations that many people in my community have. We all have different relationships with different people, and when you change, those relationships change. I know within different studies that are out there, people who take testosterone, actually, I think I'll talk about this later in a slide, who they are sexually attracted to also can change. I'm going to get to these questions because I just saw it, but it'll distract me and really mess me up. So sorry. So I'm just going to talk about a few of these that are on here. There are a lot more out there. I know myself, Elizabeth. There are plenty more out there. So if you would like to go out and do education for yourself on these things, and you maybe just want a jumping off point, I'll gladly send you some. But I do believe in my resource guide at the end there. Where I got this from is there, and of course I try to for my undergrad, I had history as one of my interdisciplinary, so I try real hard to make sure my resources are, you know, above and above of what I'm using. So asexual, it's a term used to describe someone who does not experience sexual attraction toward individuals of any gender. It is different from being celibate, in that celibacy is the choice to refrain from engaging in sexual behaviors and does not, you know, commit or comment on their sexual attraction. So it's, yeah, asexuals don't really, sex is sex, okay, whatever. They don't have to have it. They really look at the person. Some of these you'll hear me say that a lot. Demisexual, that these are the people that need that emotional connection to someone before they can even feel any kind of sexual attraction. They also don't really care about how you identify. They can gay, straight, bisexual, demi-romantic, sapiosexual, gray asexual, pansexual. It's all of these. They don't care about how you identify. Gray asexual, which you heard me say, and I think is on there right by the demisexual flag, is a lot of the same. So bisexual, and it's defined as someone as romantic or sexual attraction to both males and females. Um, or they are sexually attracted to both people of the same gender, or even different genders. But bisexuals are, in my experience, are more attracted to male or female or both. Somewhat non-binary, but they're just more, they definitely look at gender a little more, I believe. That is my opinion. I can be wrong, and it's okay if I am. So pansexual, they can feel attraction to anyone, including individuals who do not identify as a specific gender. For example, people with a pansexual orientation may feel attraction to someone who is a gender, and they might equally find female, male, or gender fluid people attractive. One of my partners is pansexual. I appreciate that about them. Omnisexual is attraction to all genders. They are attracted to, like I said, all genders, and gender will usually play a role in that person's attraction, though, and it can be seen as a form of multi-sexuality or non-monosexuality. I said this earlier, spectra asexual, or no, spectrosexual, pardon me. Lots of words sometimes. It's a term used to describe those who are romantically and sexually attracted to multi-sexes, genders, and gender identities, but not all of them. I do know some who are within this term, and they're very good people. Many of them are within the kink community, kink BDSM community here, and they are some of the most consensual people you will know. They are always, yes has to be yes. And as soon as you say no or maybe, everything stops. So I definitely enjoy knowing those people, and them bringing that positivity of consent is great forward, and especially in the social environment we have. So the last one I'll talk about is the poly flag down there at the bottom right, the polysexual, polyamory. It is a practice of having multiple intimate relationships, whether sexual or just romantic. But here's the kicker. Here's the part that really sticks for anyone who's in a poly relationship. Everyone has knowledge and consent of all parties. I am in a poly relationship. My partner and their wife are both my partners too. We are all three romantically involved in our lives. And for me and them, it works extremely well. But I can tell you a lot of what happens in a poly relationship is we are human, there is jealousy, but we talk it out. Communication is first and foremost a major part of any poly relationship, because trust has to be built between them. Now, some of you are probably wondering why sexual orientation. Like I said, HIV, a lot of it is spread by sex, unprotected sex. Some of these people are in poly relationships. And if you pick the wrong person and they have HIV, and even if they don't know they have HIV, that communication and understanding and knowing who you are with is extremely important. So a lot of these that I've talked about, that is a big part of what happens. Especially poly relationships, pan, those types of areas. The people I know, but I know a lot of people in my community who also support things like St. Jude, like the Haven, Friends for all those P's, everyone into HIV. We understand you have, pardon me, having your status is sexy in our world. And that's what we really tried to push and promote. especially in Mid-South Trans Nation, because we understand being trans, we are sometimes hypersexualized, including myself being TransMasc. Um, the hypersexualization you can find, it's everywhere on the internet, and it comes out. And that is probably why a lot of laws are brought forth, because people buy into we are a straight sexual person and that's all we want and we'll take anybody and we don't care who they are and we're going to change everybody. No, a lot in my community are not that way. Even if we are poly, we communicate, we have consent between parties, we do a lot of things to push forward the other narrative of positivity, consent, communication, trust. Getting tested is super important. Um, we have had any event that Mid South Trans Nation has had. We have had either the Haven or Peas there, or even out Memphis come and be a part of us, to promote testing, to promote protection, to promote PrEP and PEP. They are always there. We want them there and we want them to promote these things and be a part of our community. And we definitely fight that stigma that is attached, which is a great leeway to stigmas. I did that very accidentally, by the way. So for all the research I did for this, because there's not a lot of research about trans men or TransMasc in the HIV community. Trans women, bucket loads. And I know why, and I understand why. And I totally respect why. One of my partners is a trans woman, and I love them dearly. But all the research has been toward their community right now. Is the trans women community has that research there. Trans men and TransMasc, why? Why is it not out there? Well, I can tell you from my point of view and the things I see is we present so much as a man that some of those social stigmas that go with being a man, hiding your feelings, don't let anybody know things, just, go along, you're the strong one, all those stigmas that are being fought actively by many in not only community but worldwide, they attach over to trans men and TransMasc. So we don't want to talk about things. We pass. That's enough. Yeah, I'm a dude. What's up? How you doing? I've gotten a lot of hey mans. What's up? What's up, bro? Yes, sir. Those things. Do they give me some euphoria? Yes, they do. But I also feel like a fraud at times. I'm like, if you only knew what was under the clothes. All the things I have to do to pass as a man. I mean, today actually is shot day for me. After I get off of here, I will draw my testosterone and stab myself in the belly. I make a joke of it because I really hate needles, by the way. But this is what I have to do to present. And this is also part of the things that we have to fight to get these reporting numbers out there, to get things monitored too. Because I think we all can agree once a guy starts feeling better, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, move on. You don't think about it anymore. It's a social stigma that has been attached to masculinity. I have two sons and I have tried to raise them in a totally different way. Your feelings matter. They're 100% valid. If you need to cry it out. It is 100% acceptable. My 20-year-old is now a specialist in the Army. He's a diesel mechanic. All the girls love him. Not gonna lie to you. His girlfriend especially adores him for the fact that he understands his emotions. He knows how to cope with them because we taught him coping techniques, and understands her emotions and takes them into consideration just as much. That's how I raise my boys. Not everybody does that. Everybody has to raise their kids as they see, but some of those social norms as they are, it hinders reporting on things. It hinders how we monitor to getting all that information of how are they taking PrEP? Are they taking PEP? What are some of the issues? How can we do this? And I even reached out to the Haven and was like, hey, do you have any numbers? Do you have anything that, maybe I can use that you've promoted already or put out? And they don't have many either. But trans women, plenty of it. And that's great. How do we fight that? How do we figure out reporting and monitoring? Some of the things that I would suggest we do is intake forms. How are we keeping track of that? How are we even addressing it when they come in? And we'll talk more about that. But I can tell you the CDC, they say that their trans men and transmascs are at a more elevated rate for HIV. They just don't have the numbers, because they say that the HIV prevalence among transgender men is low. It's like 0 to 3%. That's all they have. I guarantee you it is higher than that. I guarantee you something in the reporting or something in the monitoring with the intake form, something there can be adjusted and we can probably get better numbers. Unfortunately, that's not something I am great at. So the powers that be, St. Jude, these are things that we can definitely work on to help my community. Because our basic health needs a little different. I mean, I just told you some of the things that I went through. I stab myself once a week. I am under doctor care. So every 6 months I go to my doctor and I get everything evaluated. All my blood, all my levels, making sure I am healthy as far as that goes. Some of the other needs, and this is to me a very basic health need, is because I have not had top surgery because I don't have $10,000 to $12,000 just hanging out. I just spend it on my HVAC actually, is binding. It can be very dangerous to bind if you don't understand or know how. And many young people don't know how. Thankfully, now that the internet is the way it is sometimes, there are many areas people can go to learn how to bind correctly. And that is, taking your breast and basically flattening them out as flat as you possibly can, because that's basically what we want to do. We want that masculine flat chest. We want that look. Like I said, a lot of us don't have, my insurance does not cover that. It is a gender surgery and they refuse to cover it. I work for the University of Memphis. I work for the state of Tennessee technically, but they will not cover it. They also do not cover my testosterone, so I pay out of pocket every month for that. Thankfully, my testosterone is much lower in cost than HRT. So I pay about $32 a month. And that gives me enough for 4 shots, and that's it. And it is also a controlled substance. So every little bit, I have to call the doctor and say, hey, will you call the pharmacy and approve that I can have this? It's part of the way I have to do it. Needles, same thing. I have to buy needles myself because my insurance will not cover them. Amazon is great sometimes for needles. I'm very hesitant about where I get them on Amazon. Thankfully, one of my partners is a nurse, so I have her help me to make sure I'm getting them from the right provider, or provider. I'll call them providers on Amazon. Safety is first and foremost. I'm going to improve that. I'll just run with it. But that's my basic healthcare need, is that. I did something. I really shouldn't touch things. One of the things I talked about earlier is how when you are taking testosterone, it can change your sexual attraction. I have found a 2014 report from NIH. I don't have to say what that is because I'm sure everyone on here knows what it is. that they had 115 trans people taking hormone therapy. And 32.9% of the male to female, they reported a change in their sexual orientation. 22.2% of female to male reported the same. And out of these, they reported this sexual orientation change happened before having surgeries, any kind of surgeries. So hormones plays a part in our lives, definitely. I mean, it plays a part in everybody's lives, but for this, it's just something that we definitely look at is how are my hormones working? What's my levels? I mean, we worry about those things. It's another part of our life that that is a basic need for us. It is life affirming need for us. But it also brings about changes in who we may want to be attracted to. And that also changes who we go out and date or go, because you know how the dating scene can be. There's Tinder and Bumble and Her and all the things that are out there. So those things are a part of our lives, and being hypersexualized is part of it. There are a lot of videos out there of people such as myself being sexualized in a way that I know I have heard gay men say that's interesting because you know they're used to just another gay man. Well, this is something different that looks like a man, but not all the parts are there like a man. So, ooh, that's different. So just like trans women, we are hypersexualized in that sense. And having that also means we have the same worries as the trans women of being drugged in the club because we're trying to be around the guys and hang out, but we don't feel comfortable in the cis world because especially once, you know, we're dating a woman and and especially if you're not upfront and positive communication at the beginning of saying who you are and how you identify, they take that differently, which is understandable because if you're not attracted to that, you're not attracted to that. But that communication part, I think in the trans world is especially important. Sometimes we over communicate, and that's probably why we're such good speakers because we over communicate. We put it out there. This is who I am because we don't want to hurt anybody the way we've been hurt. We don't want to start going out on a date, being attracted to someone, and really liking them, and then when they find out things are not the same down there, they want nothing to do with you and they make you feel ashamed. That stigma comes out of, oh my God, this happened. They want nothing to do with you. When I was very briefly dating in the world, it was hard because I had to explain who I was. And they just saw a masculine face, but it was like, little different. So there are many times, even on the gay sites, where I'm attracted to women. It's who I want to be with. It would be difficult at times. So some of the things that I was asked to talk about is, especially within our community, is why can't we get access? Why can't we get these people in to get tested? Why can't we get them on PrEP? What's happening? Well, basic life needs, you know, your shelter, your work, and for us, meds. Those are all really hard to get sometimes because of who we are, because of the stigmas that are attached to us, and because of the discrimination that's happened to us. Sometimes it's, yeah, this part's a little hard because I know many people who have talked to me about this. We have support groups and stuff, so I'll probably use some of their examples. I know many people, young people who are non-binary, TransMasc, or trans men. They're working 2 to 3 jobs a week. They're constantly working. They don't have days off. They can't go out and do things because they need a job. They need to make money. they need shelter, they need food, they need clothes, they want their meds. They have to pay the insurance to do things such as surgeries, even just getting testosterone. I'm lucky in that I can afford it. Other people can't. Um, they can't get needles sometimes. When you can't get a needle, that's not clean. You know, you open yourself up to so many infections, and HIV is one of them. I have known people to share, and it's not a positive thing. It's not good. But when you start working somewhere and they find out you're trans, different things can happen. And not just from the bosses, your coworkers. Oh my God, they're trans. Here. And especially in today's political climate, it has pushed open a lot more discrimination against my community. If you are within it, you're wrong. Over there. I'm sorry. They're here working on the HVAC. I apologize, y'all. Um, so these things happen to us a lot where we're discriminated against at the workplace. Well, if we can't work because we got fired for reasons that we should have been fired for, how can we afford shelter? How can we afford food? How can we even afford transportation? Sometimes that is one of the biggest things that we can't afford is a plain car. I mean, all of you here understand the car needs insurance, it needs gas, you're going to need tires, oil changes. The maintenance of life sometimes is very hard for a trans person to deal with. I mean, there is such a high unemployment rate within my community, or even not just unemployment. It's not being hired for a job, even though you have all the qualifications, and plus some, all because you're trans. Because my community is not going to hide it. A lot of people don't. We are who we are. I have earned my degrees. Yes, I earned them before I became trans, but they're still my degrees, and I still have been discriminated against within my own workplace. It's the life we live. And we try to every day guide ourselves, to do better and be better. But because of these things that happen to us with discrimination, with not things maybe not being reported right, what can we do? We do our best and work every day to try to do better. Some of us that have homes, we have to have roommates. Sometimes those roommates have been exes, and those exes don't like that you did what you did. I do have many people that have had to stay with exes because that was the only home they had. How can you keep your medicine safe? How can you keep PrEP there when you're living with an ex? And you don't want to start that fight. You just want to live. How can you keep your testosterone safe? How can you keep your HRT safe? People will mess with these things. We know this, especially if there is hate there. And if it's an ex, well, they're an ex for a reason usually. So these things happen to us and I know they happen to everybody, but I think within the trans community, there's an extra push sometimes because they don't like the fact that you're trying to be better. I don't think many exes like when you try to do better and be better, but when you actually change how you look, how you identify, that's a whole other level. One person that I know, they are not able to find a primary care doctor because every one of them that they've tried to find, from the time they walk in the door to the time they walk out, they have been misgendered, they have been dead named, they have been okay, one big thing, and I have to agree, is that when we walk in and we look like this, and you ask us one time, is there a chance to be pregnant? And I tell you, no, because I sleep with women, and you know I was assigned female at birth. Promise you, you don't need to ask me again. In that same visit, especially. Every now and then, understandable, especially if something comes up about I have changed who I am in a relationship with. Yes, please ask me. After that, I'm probably going to make the joke, which I've made before to nurses. Is there a chance you could be pregnant? Ma'am, those are going to be some great double A's if I am. The awkwardness goes to them. And that's what, it's a defense mechanism that my community uses. We put that, like I said before, awkwardness toward you, not me. It's how we do it. I know sometimes it can be very mean the way we say it, but unfortunately, that's just part of it. It's, you know, we're trying to live, we're trying to get our shelter, we're trying to get our work. We just want to be seen by a doctor as a person. That's all. I'm a person. I'm coming to you for care. Help me get my medicine. If I'm coming to you for a sinus infection, come on. Work with me, not against me. I mean, that hypersexualization can sometimes come through when we're doing that in a doctor's office. So those things that I would definitely think about doing is part of my next slide for our education. Think about the way you're doing your intake forms, and we'll do that for the next slide especially. But that's a simple, easy fix. Educate the staff. How do we address people? And if you don't know, ask. It's the best way to do it. It's not going to be awkward. I promise. Hey, my name is blah, blah, blah. My pronouns are she, her, he, him, they, them. Simple, easy ways. Some of the things I've talked about are gender dysphoria. And for those that don't know, it is a psychological distress that results from the difference between one's sex assigned at birth and one's gender identity. This can begin at childhood. Mine did. As a child, I hated when I hit puberty and I got boobs. It was the worst day of my life. When my period started, I wanted nothing to do with it. I was like, this is crap. God, you can take this back. I do not need it. Let me just keep running around, being me, playing sports, doing all these things. Some people don't also experience it till much later. Trans women, call them sir one time and watch their dysphoria kick in. Even myself, somebody calls me a ma'am, the shoulders shrug a little bit and we try to move past it and deal with it, but it hurts. It really messes with your confidence in who you are. Transgender youth, they really start to experience this more, and then they start to rebel a little bit more, and this happens. Within reporting, when y'all are talking about this later, identifying as TransMasc or trans man, I think will help a lot as far as working with the gender identity part, and understanding maybe how the community works better and some of the habits that happen. Like how many can get PrEP? I promote PrEP a whole bunch, especially being on a college campus. I promote it a lot. It's the best I can do for my kids. I look at even my own children. I promote. I was like, y'all are dating. Go get on PrEP. Go find it. If you are sexual in any way, shape, or form with anybody, I want you on PrEP. And it is for everybody, every day, once a day. That they are all, my kids alone are sick and tired of hearing that too. But it's how do we get it to them? It's at this point, it's going to them. These community organizations, especially here in Memphis, they go out there and they get to them. They get out there and they do their best, but sometimes having events at places, it's hard to get those people there. We do our best too. We promote, we push, we do everything we can, but it's hard to get them there because they're working all the time, working numerous jobs. They don't have transportation. A lot of people too, especially the younger crowd, I've noticed, they don't want to drive. Their confidence in themselves because of the dysphoria and everything, it affects that. They don't want to drive. They don't even want to think about it. So they have to ask friends. They have to ride the bus, Uber, all those things. Well, if you can barely afford your rent and food, how are you going to afford Ubers? So getting prepped to this community, it is a challenge. It is a challenge getting prepped there, but it's also worth it in everything that we do. Organizations like this, in the End HIV 901, Planned Parenthood, Choices, all these places, they're doing their absolute best, and Mid-South Trans Nation is there to try to help. Mid-South Pride, we definitely support them and push it out there. But how? It's always seems to be the question, and I don't see a fail-safe answer. I don't see how we can get out to a community who's always working when they're not working. They have anxiety so bad they don't want to be right there and be out in public. There's another issue. Anxiety is so high right now in the community, in what people do. It's part of it, and it's something that also has to be addressed, the psychological part. Some of the numbers I can give are, like the Kaiser Family Foundation. I like to go and read their things. I'm a nerd. That, gay and bisexual men in the US, 15% of them had received poor treatment. Well, that's just gay and bisexual men. Think about the trans community being misgendered and identified. It happens. Still happens today to me when I go to a doctor's office. Can you hang on 1 second? I apologize. I apologize so much. Hang on 1 second, please.
Thank you for everybody who's participating. Please bear with us. He is having some unscheduled work done on his HVAC system, so they had to pull him. My apologies.
I greatly apologize for this. My HVAC went down. I had no heat, and unfortunately, this was the only time I can get him out here. I am so sorry, and life happened. So I apologize so much. I did not expect him to be done that quick. But, so I got a good HVAC guy if anybody needs his number. All right, so back to what I was talking about. Discussion. I'll go down to discussion in the community. When we're in support groups, which we do have with Mid-South Trans Nation, we have one called NB Army. We have opened it up to more gender fluid and different gender expressions, though, including just trans men and trans women too. We invite them all in because there's not really that many support groups that have people of all of who we are in the community together. We talk about these things. We talk about, man, I gotta go to work at my second job now. I gotta go do this. I gotta go do that. I asked them, I was like, how can we better get things to y'all? How can my organizations that I work with get things to y'all? And the answer is always, we see y'all. We know it's there. We see the organizations. We know the resources that are given. The problem is we don't have the time. We don't have the money. We don't have even the effort to get there because we're just trying to survive. And I think it's a very common theme in the trans community is we're just trying to survive. We're just trying to make it every day and get things done. So one of the things too is they don't trust healthcare. It's just part of it. It's hard to trust something that keeps letting you down. It keeps misgendering you. It keeps making you feel so horrible about who you are. it's very hard sometimes to trust somebody when it comes to that. And when you find somebody, we latch on like a leech. We will not let you go if you are a good doctor to us. You will get so many referrals. Because once the community finds out you're trusted and you're gonna, address us properly. You're gonna respect our existence and who we are and the care we ask for. We will come to you from now until the end of time because we trust you. And once you earn that trust, you can push it away and then we'll stop. But I mean, don't don't abuse it. Because once you earn it, you're going to earn a lot of people's trust and a lot of people will come to you. And that's also a discussion that happens in our community is that, oh, well, this is a good doctor. You should go see them. Yeah, they're great. They're great. They do everything. Oh, you should see their intake forms. People talk about intake forms. People talk about from the time we walk in to the time we leave in an office, what happens. So the discussions in our community about these things, they are happening. They may be in small little groups, but they are happening. And people like myself, we try to listen and we ask them for those resources. Hey, who's somebody you found that you like? Tell me. Do you think I could add them to the resource guide? You know what? Give me their number. I'll talk to them. And we'll call up their offices. We will talk to them. We'll find things out. And if we know, oh yeah, they're going to be good, put them in the resource guide. We have people for haircuts, to treat our pets. Yeah, because trust me, everybody in this community has a pet of some kind. I know we don't make a lot of money, but those animals help us so much with our anxiety and our dysphoria and how we feel about ourselves. Because they just love us for who we are. You can't explain. I definitely cannot explain how much pets really matter to the trans community. But we have resources for all these things, anything that deals with our life, including even going grocery shopping. They matter to us. So I talked about intake forms. Here's some of the things that I definitely suggest as far as a clinic or provider level. I did get this from one of the resources that will be on my resource page. Trying to remember which one because I looked at a lot of them before I did this because I'm the nerd that does those things. But and I'm also not going. I hope everybody's noticed. I don't like to read what's on there because I try to teach more than teach you to read. All these are truly life affirming practices that honestly it's not hard. The graphics, a poster, a button, I'm telling you, a button that says my pronouns are, it will make a world of difference to people seeing that. Even my Starbucks people, and Starbucks is very notoriously gay. But when they have those buttons, I feel better about even getting my coffee. And I know that it's not something you may think of, but it's something we think of. It's something we want to know. What's some of the other things? Active listening. This is a skill I think we all can agree that not people have, but sometimes forget or don't have. And they need to work on it because active listening is a major thing. I have honestly went and seen other doctors because the doctor I was seeing didn't listen. They just went, okay, well, I think this, and that was it. Well, how do you know me? How do you know that that's gonna work for me when I'm telling you I've tried it before and it don't work? Active listening and taking a moment. One of the best doctors I've had in my life before I came out as trans was my gynecologist at the women's WPG here, the women's provider group here in town. And I honestly think it's because they're all Black doctors there, Black women doctors. And we know some of the things that Black women go through per doctors and childbirth and everything there. She actually took 15, 20 minutes of my first appointment with her to just sit down and talk to me about my sexual health, me having kids, those types of things, they matter. And that was that active listening. I mean, and she made jokes with me. It was great. It made me feel better too. But that active listening is such a skill and it helps out our community so, so much. Because some of the social norms that feel comfortable for you aren't comfortable for me. Some of the things that you may look at and think are great, they really aren't for my community. They really aren't for a person like me. Appreciate you. Thank you. I apologize. There are just lots of things that everyone can do to help with this to make us feel more safe. And I think having that also opens up the door to getting PrEP more prevalent in the community, to getting our statuses looked at, to getting those reporting and monitoring numbers that we need, because you can't treat something if you don't know about it. I understand that. I know what needs to happen, but I can't get people in the door if they don't trust the door. So these simple things right here, and I'm talking from the person even at the parking garage, those simple things, they will matter. And it's hard to do. I understand that. I totally understand that it is hard to do. Even my boss sometimes, as much props as I give him, because he knew me before I transitioned. So every now and then it'll be she, and I will look at him and I will throw a pin at him. Quick, easy way between me and him that he understands, I misgendered him. And he corrects himself right away. Every time that pin hits him, he stops and goes, I'm sorry. They said, and we move on. People in my office, my coworkers, they understand that's my subtle sign now, and they laugh at it, and they just roll with it now. They're all very cool about it. Some of my students, nobody said anything yet to me, but I'm waiting for the conversation to come up. But of course they're students, so they've probably all talked about it anyway by now. So practicing that cultural humility, thinking about your biases, major part of getting those numbers you want, getting that thing that you need to understand how can we better treat the community. It's not easy, but I definitely believe St. Jude puts in the effort and work to do so, because I mean I'm here. So at this time, we can do some questions. I know there was one earlier. Find the
I
question.
got you. So the question in the chat was from Sierra. She said, what do you think about the new legislation in Arkansas where they have removed the ability for a community to choose their identity they would like on their driver's license now, and now you are required to have your gender assigned at birth. Those who currently have a license with their preferred gender are okay for now until their license expires.
As some know, Tennessee has already enacted this law. Good old Tennessee. So driver's license, it says F for female. And I refuse to change it. Even when I could change it, I refuse to change it to M because I don't feel M. I don't feel F. I'm X. On my passport, I can change it to X. So my federal is an X, but nothing else. When I get pulled over, I get pulled out of my car every time because they see the space and that F, and it throws them for a loop. South Haven Police, we had a great conversation. I paid the fine. I was speeding. It's a whole whole added extra step that we take. But I'm also defiant, so I refuse to change. I believe it is, especially if you have jumped through every hoop we have to have the care we need, the surgeries we want, or have gotten. If it still says M on a birth certificate, but that person has F parts, how does that make sense? And who are you to define who I am? You are you and I am me. Now, I can definitely understand, like, we don't want to just wild, wild west, willy nilly it, and because people will do weird things. I mean, McSmiley McBodie face, that's a perfect example of a person to name something weird. Um, Personally, I like the name, but probably not a name I want on my driver's license. Um, we can we can do things in ways that make sense, but still respect a person's identity and respect who they are and what they've went through. If I've jumped through 10 hoops to be myself, shouldn't you allow me to be that person? I mean, it's to me it's common sense, but this is also why I'm not in politics.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did any others have questions? Well, I just wanted to make a comment, cause I like with the reporting, right, for the trans community, that's the most that I've ever seen. So from my understanding, Mar, is there, in your experience, like thus far, is there an increase in reporting? Is that a safe assumption that people are starting to come forward and starting to report their transgender, whether it's transgender male, female, and things like that?
Definitely, definitely, especially within our youth. Our youth are leading the way, honestly. But I think it's also it's just the changes in society and how we look at things. Our youth are like, we do not care who you are with, how you identify. Don't be a butthead. Honestly, that came from my 15-year-old, by the way. Um, he, that's how he feels. And when your 15-year-old says that, you're like, okay, cool, cool. I may have done something right here. But that's how even the college kids are. They're like, we don't care. My ACAD course, that's out there, the academic strategies course, I have 18 and 19-year-olds and 17, 18, and 19-year-olds in that class. And I make sure they know from the get-go, I am not binary. I am a they, them. I do not use Mr. or Miss. I use Mix, MX, Newell. If you want to address me in that way, I will take yes, sir, because I understand we are in the South and many of these kids, their mama and dad raised them in a way that that's what they're going to say. But our youth are definitely identifying that way. You can see it. And I think it's opening the door for older people too. I actually do a podcast. I'm a guest co-host every now and then on a podcast called The Trans Narrative, and we are actually international, so it's really cool. I talked to a trans man in London who's got an organization over there that talks about these things too, including HIV and PrEP. So it was really cool to listen to him talk about these things. We talked to intersex people. That's a whole other conversation to have because I learned so much from talking to one person just about the genetics and the tests that they go through. That was that was a lot of knowledge that I didn't have, but active listening and I learned, and it is good to have that knowledge because I never know who I'm going to run into in my job, in my life, in my community. So I mean, having these things, I mean, there are more and more reports, of course, now that are 2020, 2021. So COVID has influenced some of those too. And I think COVID actually helped push forward and jumpstart some things too. as far as learning about yourself and who you are. You had time, you were inside, but you might as well figure yourself out now. So a lot of people are understanding themselves and coming out. There was another person I talked to on the podcast that was actually came out as a trans man at 50 and started testosterone and started the surgeries and everything. And they're 50 years old. But better late than never is how they looked at it. And they're such a positive, beautiful person to talk to that like I was like, oh, this needs to be a co-host every day on this podcast because it's great. I mean, they're just they come from a great place. And a lot of people in my community are like that.
I have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead. It's on, it's on.
Mar, it's about time. So just briefly, just like there's healthcare literacy, there is legal literacy. So are there some concerted efforts for, say, websites where regionally appropriate legal literacy information is available and youth are and can be guided to? Because especially now with these rapidly changing landscapes, just to rely on news and others may sometimes become difficult. So could you speak to that? And again, with that, there may be an opportunity like the EndHIV901 website is one where one can look at creating a tab where, for example, pro bono services for legal consultation and others could be at least pilot it to see if that could serve as a resource for our community.
Oh, there are so many out there. Of course, you can see ACLU does good things, but local ones, actually there's a really good website, and I pulled them up in front of me because I was like, ooh, I know these. They came up real quick on my Google. So there is a project called the Movement Advancement Project, and it's out there. You can find it at and I'll send these notes to Elizabeth to put or try to add them to this presentation so they can fit. So when it's sent out, you guys have them too. The LGBTmap.org, and it helps spotlight LGBTQ plus equality in the southern U.S. or anywhere in the U.S. Actually, has many different things that you can click on and look and provide sort of kind of knowledge of what's happening with our population in the States. The Campaign for Southern Equality is definitely one that like we at Mid-South Trans Nation actually have done fundraisers for. They help a lot of youth with grants and things like that to travel to other states to get life-affirming care. Let me see what else. What other ones? Southern Legal Council is another one. They help with transgender rights and everything. GLAAD's always a great one to have. Lambda Legal. Shoot. It's a lot of the same over and over, and they all work together. The National Center for Transgender Equality. They're a good one. Yes, they are national, but they definitely work regional too. A lot of these places do have like regional offices and regional training that you can go to and understand things. There is also the LGBTQ plus bar association that is out there in the world. See, it's even hard for us to say sometimes. That's why sometimes you'll hear Alphabet Mafia. It's so easy that way. So a lot of these places are definitely they're promoted within our community. There's also sometimes traveling legal clinics that will go through. There was one last year that helped with a lot of name changes here in town. Our organization actually teamed up out with Drew's Bar, and they showed up and had parked their RV out there, and they had people come and get help with legal matters that can be a little trickier considering we're part of the community. Those are the good people in the world You know, you find the good people and you'll find some good helpers. That's those places definitely have them. And like I said, I'll put this, I'll make another slide and put some of these websites for everybody. And then when it's shared, when the presentation is shared with y'all, they can be there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. No, so I know we're about 5 minutes over, and I think you have there. I was gonna say, I think you have one more slide. So of course, I'll let you kind of explain that real quick.
So these are, of course, Mid-South Trans Nation and Mid-South Pride, the two main organizations that I'm on the board on and work with. Of course, Memphis, because, you know, I work there. I appreciate the paycheck. Go Tigers, go always. And then the Tennessee Equality Project is a really good one too. That's here in town, is a wonderful, wonderful human being that is so accepting of everyone, and I know works really hard with some of these other places here. My sister's house, run by Kayla Gore, one of our board members too, provides tiny homes for trans people in the Mid-South, and they're actually keep building things. They're always looking for volunteers to come out and help with different things when the tiny houses are getting toward completion. We go out there and help. You know, it can be hard work, but it's work from the heart. So, you know, when your back hurts, you don't feel so bad. Love doesn't hurt. Our good friend Phyllis, if you have not heard Phyllis, you need to. She's an amazing, amazing person, and also talk about sex positivity in our community. And then the Haven, of course, Friends for All in the Haven. I mean, Krista actually helped me with some of this presentation and some of the numbers and things like that. So shout out to Krista and the whole group there. They even helped me and Jenna do a live Instagram of getting tested for HIV, you know, to show it's a very easy process, and it's not all like, oh, you know, stressful or anything. And we even did our results there live on our Instagram because we have nothing to hide and there's no stigma for us. We don't care if you have HIV. We love you the same. You are our people. We'll help take care of you if we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mar, and thank you everybody who stayed over as we did go a little bit over. With that being said, of course, if you have any questions, you can definitely email me directly, and I'll make sure Mar gets that. And with that being said, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mar, and everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, y'all. Thank you, though.